The hot egusi soup flew through the air in a thick, green arc. It splashed across the waiter's face, dripped down his white uniform, and pooled in his shoes. Pieces of goat meat slid down his cheek. The smell of palm oil and pepper filled the entire dining room of the Adebayo Grand Hotel in Victoria Island. Every guest froze. Forks stopped halfway to mouths. A woman in a gold gelly gasped so loudly she dropped her glass of wine. The waiter, a quiet man in his late 40s, did not move. He did not flinch. He did not wipe his face. He simply stood there, soup running into his collar, and looked calmly at the young man who had thrown it. "What are you staring at, stupid?" Lekan Balogun shouted, his voice echoing through the marble hall. "Did I tell you to look at me? Apologize now. Get on your knees and apologize before I make sure you never work in any hotel in Lagos again." The waiter blinked slowly, just once. Then he gave a small smile. But what Lekan did not know, what nobody in that dining room knew, was that the quiet man dripping with soup was not just a waiter. He was the man who signed every paycheck in that building. He was the man whose name was carved in gold above the front entrance. He was the man whose decision in the next 60 seconds was about to destroy Lekan Balogun's entire life. What happened next will shock you. What this poor-looking waiter said when the manager finally arrived, what Lekan's father did when he received the phone call, and what the fiancée sitting at that very table did right there in front of everyone. My people, you have never seen drama like this in your life. Before we go any further, please do me a small favor. Tap that like button. Subscribe to this channel and turn on the notification bell so you do not miss the second one. And drop a comment below telling me where you are watching from and what time it is in your city. I want to see how far this story has traveled today. Now, sit back. Relax. Let me take you back 2 weeks. Because to understand the soup, you must first understand the man wearing it. His name was Mr. Tunde Adebayo. And in 1994, he was a busboy in a small hotel in Surulere, sweeping the floor for 2,000 naira a month and sleeping in the staff quarters with 3 other men. He was 19 years old. His mother sold roasted plantain on Lagos Island. His father was a carpenter who had died of malaria when Tunde was 12. There was no money for university. There was no rich uncle waiting somewhere. There was only Tunde, his broom, and a dream that everybody laughed at. "One day," he used to say to anybody who would listen, "I will own a hotel. Not a small one. A big one. With marble floors and chandeliers." The senior staff laughed. The cook laughed. Even the security man at the gate laughed. But Tunde did not laugh. Tunde saved. Tunde read every book about hospitality he could borrow from the public library. He watched how the manager talked to guests. He watched how the manager talked to staff. He noticed something nobody else seemed to notice. The manager was kind to the rich guests, but he treated his own workers like rags. He shouted at them. He fined them for small mistakes. He never asked their names. "If I ever own a hotel," young Tunde whispered to himself one night, sweeping the lobby alone at 2 a.m., "I will never treat any worker like that. Never. Because everybody is somebody's child." 31 years later, Tunde Adebayo owned 12 hotels. Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt, Calabar, 2 in Ghana, 1 in Dubai. His chain, Adebayo Grand Hotels, was valued at over 200 billion naira. He had 3 children studying abroad, a beautiful wife who ran his charity foundation, and a face that almost nobody outside business magazines could recognize. Because Tunde Adebayo did not like cameras. He did not like red carpets. He did not like parties. What he liked was something very strange. Every 3 months, Tunde would put on the simple uniform of one of his hotels. White shirt, black trousers, black bow tie. And he would work for 1 full week as an ordinary waiter or porter or cleaner in one of his own properties. Nobody knew. Not even his managers. Only one person knew. Mr. Ease, the general manager of the entire chain, and Mr. Ease had sworn an oath of silence. Tunde called it walking in their shoes. He wanted to know how his staff were really being treated. He wanted to know which managers were kind and which were cruel. He wanted to know if the dignity he had promised himself 31 years ago in that surreal lobby was still alive inside the walls of his hotels. And that is how, 2 weeks before the soup incident, Mr. Tunde Adebayo, the man worth 200 billion naira, walked into the staff entrance of his own Victoria Island flagship hotel, signed in under the name Tunde Bello Waiter, and began his quiet week of observation. What he saw made him both proud and angry. He saw Auntie Folake, the head housekeeper, a woman of 52 who had worked in that hotel for 19 years. He saw her cleaning a suite at 11 p.m. with tears running down her face. When he gently asked her what was wrong, she at first refused to speak. Then slowly she told him. Her only son, Toby, 18 years old, needed kidney surgery. The hospital had quoted 4 million naira. She did not have 4 million naira. She had 300,000. She was begging her relatives. She was selling her wrappers. She was praying. But she had not told the hotel because, in her words, Madam Owner does not like staff who bring their problems to work. Tunde almost dropped his cleaning rag. Madam Owner? There was no Madam Owner. He was the owner. He kept his face calm. Auntie, he said gently, who told you that? The new manager. Mr. Adekunle. He said the owners are very strict. That anybody who complains gets fired. Tunde said nothing. But that night, in his small staff room, he wrote one name in his notebook, Adekunle. And beside it, one word, investigate. He saw other things too. He saw a young bellboy called Emeka, only 22, who had worked there for 1 year without a single day off. He saw a chef who was being paid almost half of what his contract promised because, the chef whispered, Mr. Adekunle takes a cut. Everybody knows. Nobody talks. He saw waitresses being shouted at for tiny mistakes. He saw the bathroom soap being changed to a cheap brand while the bill to the hotel still said premium. And then, on the 5th day of his quiet week, he saw Lekan Balogun. Lekan walked into the lobby of the Adebayo Grand on a Tuesday afternoon like he owned the building. He was 26 years old. The only son of Chief Tajudeen Balogun, a powerful oil and construction magnate worth over 50 billion naira. He wore a Rolex worth more than Auntie Folake would earn in 8 years. His sunglasses cost 600,000 naira. His hair was freshly cut. His skin glowed from facials he did every Friday in a private spa. And his mouth, my people, his mouth was a dangerous, dangerous thing. The first thing Lekan did when he arrived was throw his car keys at the valet. Not hand them. Throw them. They hit the boy in the chest and bounced onto the ground. The boy bent to pick them up. Lekan did not even look at him. The second thing Lekan did was march to the front desk and tell the receptionist, a soft-spoken girl called Ifeoma, that her makeup was too bush for a 5-star hotel. He demanded that she go and clean her face. He said it loudly enough for guests in the lobby to hear. Ifeoma's eyes filled with tears. She ran to the bathroom. The third thing Lekan did, that very same day, was order Auntie Folake to clean a stain on the carpet of his presidential suite 3 different times because, he claimed, he could still see it. There was no stain. Auntie Folake knelt on her bad knees, scrubbed, and did not say a word. Tunde Adebayo watched it all. Quietly. Carefully. With the patience of a man who has waited 31 years for something. He learned that Lekan was at the hotel because his engagement dinner with a young woman called Vanessa Okonkwo was happening that Saturday in the main dining hall. Vanessa was the daughter of another wealthy businessman. The wedding was already being planned to be the biggest in Lagos that year. Magazines were waiting. Influencers were waiting. Even the Lagos state governor was rumored to be coming. Tunde made some quiet phone calls from his small staff room at night. He learned something interesting. Chief Tajudeen Balogun was, at that very moment, trying to buy a large piece of land in Lekki that Tunde personally owned. The deal was worth 18 billion naira. The chief had been chasing the sale for almost 2 years. They had not yet met face to face. Chief Balogun had no idea who actually owned that land. He only knew the name of the holding company. Tunde smiled to himself. Sometimes, my people, life arranges things in a way that you cannot even arrange them yourself. He decided. He would not blow his cover. Not yet. He would let the engagement dinner happen. He would serve at the dinner himself. And he would watch. Because a man does not reveal himself until the very moment when revealing himself will teach the loudest lesson. Saturday arrived. The dining hall of the Adebayo Grand in Victoria Island had been transformed. Crystal chandeliers. White roses imported from Holland. A live string quartet playing softly. 200 guests in agbada and lace and designer suits. Champagne flowing. Photographers waiting. And at the center table, raised on a small platform, sat Lekan Balogun and his fiancée Vanessa. Vanessa was beautiful in a quiet way. Soft eyes. A gentle smile. She wore a simple cream-colored dress with one diamond pendant on her neck. She did not seem to enjoy the loud attention. She kept looking at her hands. The first course came out. Then the second. Then the soup course, a traditional egusi soup, served in a small, elegant bowl with goat meat and assorted seafood, prepared by the hotel's executive chef. It was one of the dishes the Adebayo Grand was famous for. Tund, in his waiter's uniform, carried the soup himself to the center table. His hands were steady. His face was calm. He set the bowl down in front of Lekan with the perfect grace of a man who had served thousands of plates in his lifetime. "Your soup, sir," he said quietly. Lekan did not even look up. He dipped his spoon into the bowl, took a small taste, and immediately, his face twisted. "This soup is cold," he announced loudly. The conversation around the table stopped. Tund looked at the bowl. Steam was still rising from it. He could see it with his own eyes. "Sir," Tund said politely, "the soup was just brought from the kitchen. I can feel the heat from where I am standing. But if it does not please you, I will bring you a fresh one." Lekan's eyes snapped up. He looked at Tund for the first time. He saw an older man. An ordinary-looking waiter. Slightly graying hair. A simple uniform. Nothing impressive. "Are you arguing with me?" Lekan asked. His voice was rising. "Are you, a common waiter, telling me that I cannot taste my own soup?" Vanessa touched his arm. "Lekan, please. Don't make a scene." "Don't make a scene?" Lekan shouted. He stood up. The whole dining hall turned to look. The string quartet stopped playing. "This worthless waiter is insulting me at my own engagement dinner, and you are telling me not to make a scene? Do you know who I am? Do you know who my father is?" Tund said nothing. He simply lowered his eyes the way a humble waiter should and said quietly, "I am very sorry, sir. Let me bring you a fresh bowl." He reached for the soup. That was when Lekan grabbed it first. What happened next happened in less than 3 seconds. Lekan lifted the bowl, drew it back, and emptied the entire thing over Tund's head and face. The hot soup splashed everywhere. 200 guests gasped at once. A woman screamed. Vanessa stood up so quickly her chair fell backward and crashed onto the marble floor. The photographer's camera flashed without him meaning to. A piece of goat meat slid down Tund's nose and landed on the floor. And Tund stood absolutely still. He did not wipe his face. He did not move his hands. He simply looked at Lekan with eyes that were no longer humble. They were calm. They were cold. They were the eyes of a man who had seen many things in his life and was now seeing one more thing very clearly. "Now," Lekan shouted, breathing hard. "Now you will learn what happens when you talk back to a Balogun. You are fired. Do you hear me? Fired. Get out of this hotel. And I promise you, by the time I am done with you, you will not work in any hotel in Lagos. Not even as a toilet cleaner." He turned to the dining hall. "Where is the manager? Where is the manager of this hotel? Get him here now." Mr. Ease, the general manager of the entire Adebayo Grand chain, had been standing near the back of the hall the whole time. He had been watching with his heart pounding, because he was the only person in that building who knew the truth about the waiter dripping with soup. When Lekan called for him, Mr. Ease walked slowly forward. He stopped at the table. He looked at Tund. Tund gave him the smallest nod. Mr. Ease took a breath. "Young man," Mr. Ease said to Lekan in a voice that was suddenly, frighteningly polite, "I think you should sit down. Sit down. Sit down. Are you mad? Fire this waiter immediately, or I will buy this whole hotel and fire all of you myself." Mr. Ease gave a small, sad smile. Sir, he said, I am afraid that will not be possible. What? You cannot buy this hotel. And I cannot fire this waiter. Why not? Lekan exploded. Tell me why not? Mr. Ease looked at Lekan calmly. The whole dining hall was so silent you could hear the chandeliers gently tinkling. Because, sir, the man you have just emptied a bowl of soup over is Mr. Tunde Adebayo. He is the founder, the chairman, and the sole owner of the Adebayo Grand Hotels. He owns this building. He owns every chair you have sat on tonight. He owns every plate. He owns every fork. He owns the very floor your feet are standing on. And, sir, he also owns 11 other hotels exactly like this one. There was a sound in the dining hall that I cannot describe to you, my people. It was the sound of 200 people losing their breath at the same time. Vanessa covered her mouth with both hands. The photographer's camera fell from his fingers. Somebody dropped a glass and nobody even noticed. Lekan Balogun's face went from anger, to confusion, to a strange, sickly gray color. He looked at the older man dripping in soup. He looked at Mr. Ease. He looked back at the man. You're lying, he whispered. Tunde finally moved. He took a clean napkin from the table, slowly, deliberately, and wiped the soup from his face. He removed his bow tie. He folded it neatly. He placed it on the table beside Lekan's untouched plate. Young man, Tunde said, and now his voice was different. It was deep. It was steady. It was the voice of a man who was used to being obeyed. Mr. Ease is not lying. Pick up your phone. Call your father. Tell him the name of the man whose soup you just wore. And ask him if he wants to lose the Lekiland deal. Lekan stared at him. Call him, Tunde repeated quietly. I will wait. With shaking hands, Lekan pulled out his phone. He dialed his father. He turned away from the table and spoke in a small, panicked voice. Everybody could hear him try to whisper. Daddy! Daddy, please, there is something. Do you know the owner of Adebayo Grand Hotels? Yes, his name. His name is Tunde Adebayo. Daddy, please don't shout. Daddy, listen. I think I have made a mistake. On the other end of the phone, Chief Lekan Balogun's voice was so loud that even the people 3 tables away could hear it. He was shouting. He was begging. He was promising. He was telling his son not to move, not to say another word, that he was coming personally, that he was leaving his house in Ikoyi at that very moment. Lekan slowly lowered the phone. His shoulders sagged. His face was wet. Not with soup. With tears. With shame. He turned back to Tunde. He opened his mouth. No words came out. But before Lekan could say anything, somebody else stood up at the table. It was Vanessa. She was very quiet. She removed the engagement ring from her finger. She walked around the table. She placed the ring gently in front of Lekan. And then she did something that the next morning's newspapers would write about for 2 weeks. She turned to Tunde Adebayo, gave him a small bow, and said in a clear voice that the entire hall could hear, Sir, on behalf of my family, I apologize for what this man has done to you. I do not know you, but I have seen enough tonight to know that I cannot marry a man who throws hot soup at another human being because that human being is wearing a uniform. The engagement is over. She walked out of the dining hall with her head high. Lekan ran after her. Vanessa did not look back. Chief Lekan Balogun arrived 40 minutes later. He arrived in such a panic that he had not even changed from his house clothes. He fell on his knees in the lobby of the Adebayo Grand in front of his son. He fell on his knees. A chief, a man worth 50 billion naira, on his knees, begging Tunde Adebayo to forgive his stupid boy. He swore that the Lekki deal could collapse, that he would compensate every staff member personally, that Lekan would learn a hard lesson. Tunde looked at the older man with sympathy. Then he looked at Lekan. And he said something that I want you, my people, to remember for the rest of your lives. Chief, he said, I am not going to take legal action against your son. Not because what he did is forgivable. It is not. But because punishment from the police will only teach him to be careful next time. It will not teach him what he truly needs to learn. He turned to Lekan. Young man, if you want my forgiveness, and if you want to remain in the same Lagos with me, you will come and work in this hotel for 1 full year. Not as a manager. Not as an assistant. You will work as a cleaner. You will mop these floors. You will scrub these toilets. You will carry the bags of guests who treat you the way you treated my staff. You will be paid the same salary as Emeka the bellboy. And at the end of 1 year, if you have truly changed, you and I will sit down and have a conversation. If you refuse, I will pull every single naira I have ever invested in any business connected to your father's company. The choice is yours. Lekan, with tears running down his face, nodded. The next morning, Mr. Tunde Adebayo did 3 more things. He fired Mr. Adekunle, the cruel new manager, and reported him to the police for stealing from staff salaries. He called Auntie Folake into his office, told her who he was, and personally wrote a check for the full 4 million naira for her son Toby's kidney surgery, plus a promotion to deputy housekeeping director. And he gave every single member of his Victoria Island staff a bonus equal to 1 full month of their salary, with a personal handwritten note that said only 3 words, "Thank you. Ta." My people, the story of Lekan Balogun spread across Lagos faster than rain in July. By Monday morning, every newspaper had it. By Tuesday, every Instagram page had it. Lekan, who used to walk into rooms like he owned them, now walked into the staff entrance of the Adebayo Grand in a cleaner's uniform with his head down. People recognized him. They whispered. They laughed. He learned, day by painful day, what it means to be invisible, what it means to be tired, what it means to be human. And Tunde Adebayo, the busboy from Surulere who never stopped remembering where he came from, went home that Saturday night, washed the last of the egusi soup out of his hair, and smiled at his wife. "How was work?" she asked. "Educational," he said. So, my people, what is the lesson today? The lesson is simple. The way you treat people who can do nothing for you is the truest picture of who you really are. Be careful how you treat that waiter, that cleaner, that driver, that security man at the gate, that girl selling pure water in traffic. You do not know who they are. You do not know whose son they are. You do not know whose father they are. And one day, the very person you humiliated may be the only person standing between you and the rest of your life. Money can be lost in one bad decision. Reputation can be lost in one cruel moment. But character is what saves you when nothing else can. If this story touched you, please smash that like button. Subscribe to this channel for more powerful African stories. Drop a comment below and tell me, what would you have done if you were Tunde wearing that soup? Would you have forgiven Lekan, or would you have taken him to the police? Share this story with somebody who needs to hear it today. And remember, my people, humility is not weakness. It is the loudest strength of all. See you in the next story.